Thank you also, Senator Allen, for your words of welcome, and I accept those kind words on behalf of our House Democratic majority in the House of Representatives. Thank you. So, what an evening this is. Congratulations, Mr. Chairman. You did a great job building for the future. Thank you so much, Trabe. So it is my honor as Speaker of the House to bring greetings from the Democratic majority in the House of Representatives to the Democrats of South Carolina. And to be here in Greenville, where the Senator welcomed us so beautifully earlier. Trabe, congratulations. As Mr. Fowler said, we've known each other a long time, he and I, and we both were chairs. I was chair of the California Democratic Party, he of the South Carolina Democratic Party, and we worked together. And I just mentioned to him as he was leaving the stage that our children are friends in the Democratic Party, and the beat goes on. But Trabe, I was chair, my path to the speakership went right through the chairs of the Democratic Party in my state, so I just put it out there, I'm just saying. But it's a privilege to be here, and as I said, I've known Don Fowler for a long time, and he and Carol are a tremendous resource to the Democrats throughout the country. Thank you for your leadership, your ongoing service, and your challenge to all of us to do better. I was honored to receive this invitation from your distinguished chairman, but also from my colleague, Whip Jim Clyburn. Sadly, we were all together 1 week ago, not even a week ago, right? For Miss Emily's service. I'm glad that Angela is with us today. Angela, thank you. There are a few things I want to share with you, a few thoughts. One is, Mr. Clyburn is the highest ranking African American in the history of our country, apart from Barack Obama. But certainly in the Congress of the United States. And I wish that you could have seen him on a recent trip we took about a month and a half ago. We went to Ghana. I was there with the Congressional Black Caucus, and we went to Ghana to observe the 400th anniversary of the transatlantic slave trade. It was a very emotional trip, as you can just imagine. And we went to on a previous trip, we visited the door of no return, but now it was called the door of return because they wanted the diaspora of Africans to come back to their origins. But why I bring it up now is because Mr. Clyburn led the discussion for us with the president of Ghana, talking about values, talking about that experience, taking the pride with the horror of it all, how those people were rounded up, how they were kept before they were put on these ships, which were deadly in themselves, and then come to a life of slavery in America, and now the contribution of all of those people to our country and into the future. The test, the stamina, just the persistence of it all. But I wish you could have seen Mr. Clyburn. And by the way, this necklace I have one is from the president of Ghana, so I thought I would wear that in Mr. Clyburn's honor tonight. But as was said earlier, he has been a champion on so many issues. I've been very blessed when I was Speaker the first time to have Mr. Clyburn as our distinguished whip then and now, but also John Spratt. John Spratt was the chair of the Budget Committee, and he was very much a part of everything we did. And he taught us a lot. John Spratt, so wonderful, very beloved in the Congress, chair of the Budget Committee. And when he would do the budget, which is, as you know, numbers, there weren't numbers to him. It was a statement of our values as a country. And he always had a theme. Governor Riley, whether it was the education, there would be the theme of how we're going to make the future better for our children. So I want to salute Congressman John Spratt, Mr. Chairman, to us who was part of the leadership. But at that time, mind you, there were like 7, 8 people in the leadership. 2 of them were from South Carolina. So thank you, South Carolina. When I saw Governor Riley here this evening, he was Mr. Secretary when he came before our committee. Mr. Secretary is a member of the cabinet. I was trying to decide whether I knew him longer than I knew Don Fowler, but aren't we proud of him? Isn't he just a great leader for America? Thank you, Governor Riley. It's an honor to be with you this evening. So we acknowledge the contributions that so many South Carolinians have made to the greatness of our country. I want to talk then about a newcomer, Congressman, your brand newest one, Joe Cunningham. Joe Cunningham has already passed a bill on the floor of the House, a freshman member, and it's about protecting South Carolina's majestic coast, ensuring that the coastline and the jobs and communities it supports, that bill supports, will thrive. So let's hear it for Joe Cunningham. I think the chairman did a wonderful job acknowledging so many people in such a short time frame. I mean, really, everybody in the room. But how about Chandra and Leola, they did too. They just acknowledged so much. Just everybody stand up in the room and be acknowledged for what you're doing. Let me just tell you, again, when I was chairman, we used to call and we still do, our Democratic Party activists, our VIPs, our volunteers in politics. Our volunteers in politics who enable us to take our message on the ground, to own the ground, and then get out that vote to win the election. Everything else we do is a conversation, and it's valuable. But if we don't turn out the vote, it's very hard for us to have more votes than the other side. So I just want you to know, from where I sit, every time when we talk about elections and the rest, it's always about, you better be ready with your ground game when you go talk to the speaker, because that's really what makes all the difference. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I was so inspired by your knowing the numbers, calculating the numbers, how to make it all work, how to add it all up to a victory. So thank you, all of the county chairs, as well as the officials of the state party, for what you do. And why is that important? Okay, we can applaud them all. Why is that important? Because we believe that there is a role, a public sector role, to improve the lives of the American people. We don't want any government more than we need, but we do want the government that we do need. And that is why, in this last election, we were so proud of our campaign. It was for the people. For the people. We will lower health care costs by lowering the cost of prescription drugs, and we will do so and preserve the pre-existing condition. Very important in the lives of the American people. During the year, there were 10,000 grassroots events around the country, people telling their stories. And so when election time came, people said, how come health care was such a big issue? Well, it was such a big issue because it is a big issue in the lives of the American people. We then said we're going to lower health care costs, we're going to build bigger paychecks, and we're going to do so by building the infrastructure of America in a green way. Lower health care, bigger paychecks, cleaner government, H.R. 1, to get rid our political process of dark special interest money, end voter suppression, and I think that we can work with the Republicans on lowering health care costs, prescription drug costs. I think we can work with them on building the infrastructure of America. At least I hope so. We've been having those conversations. I'm not sure they're particularly interested in cleaner government. That's a harder sell for them. But it was important, and we were in the most gerrymandered, voter-suppressed political arena you could imagine. With your help, we won a net gain of 40 Democratic new members of Congress. And Democratic majority that I bring you greetings from is 60%, Mr. Chairman, 60% women, people of color, LGBTQ. A beautiful, quite different from the other side. And we have all of that diversity, and plus diversity of opinion, of generation, of gender ID. Did I say geography as well? Thinking in terms of what the role of government should be and the rest. So we have complete diversity, and we respect everyone's opinion. And I say to them, our diversity is our strength. Our unity is our power. And that is what the person in the White House fears most, the unity of the Democrats in the Congress. And this is this Congress, we will observe the 100th anniversary of women getting the right to vote, winning the right to vote. When that happened, the headline said, "Women given the right to vote." Not so. Not so. Not so. Women worked, fought, struggled, marched, starved, were starved, whatever it is. And it was a major achievement. And we all stand on the shoulders of those women, and other women stand on ours. But in the event, the point I want to make to you is, as we observe that, it's the first time we've had over 100 women in the House of Representatives. 106 women, 91 of them are Democrats. Because we made a decision. Because we made a decision. And that every election that we would keep adding and adding to the list. And they're making a tremendous difference. And of our new freshmen, when Watergate, you're all too young, Governor and Don and I, when Watergate babies came to the Congress, it was one of the biggest classes ever to come. It was transformative, the Congress of the House of Representatives. In the first year, not one of them had a gavel. Not one was a chair of a subcommittee. In this Congress, 18 freshmen are chairs of subcommittee. 10 are women, 8 are men, and imagine that they preside. So it's a beautiful thing to see all of this constant reinvigoration of the Congress coming in, playing a role, passing bills on the floor, as Joe Cunningham has already, and chairing committees. And what has that accomplished? We have accomplished a great deal that we have sent over to the Senate. And while they may not think that these bills are going to be passed, we tell them they're alive and well in the public. And we fully expect them to get a vote on the floor of the Senate. But Lincoln said, public sentiment is everything. Public sentiment is everything. With it, you can accomplish almost anything. Without it, practically nothing. So when public sentiment weighs in, we feel that we will be able to achieve some of what we set out to do. And H.R. 1 was the first bill that was cleaner government. Then we sent over H.R. 8, so named because it was 8 years from the time of Gabby Giffords, the assault on her life. That's been over there for over 200 days. I said to the president the other day, I pray for you, I pray for your family, I pray for their safety, and I pray that you will provide safety for other families in our country by getting this bill passed in the Senate and signed. And with that is Mr. Clyburn's Bill 1112 to address the South Carolina loophole that we want him to sign as well. So it's about cleaner government, safer communities for our children. It's about for our young people, not only that, it's that they care about climate action now. We sent that over. Preserving net neutrality, protecting our dreamers for women, the Violence Against Women Act, equal pay for equal work. We've sent that over. Raise the minimum wage, which is, although over 30 million people will benefit, over 20 million of them are women. For the LGBT community, we have the Equality Act to end discrimination against the LGBTQ community. The list goes on. The list goes on and on. So we have been legislating. We have been legislating. Unfortunately, we've also had to be investigating. When your distinguished chairman invited me to come to this dinner, and Mr. Clyburn presented that invitation, little did we know. Little did we know. Little did we know. But here's what we do know. And this is very sad. All of these people that we talked about coming to Congress and other, not any of us came to Congress to impeach a president. This is very sad time for our country. It's a very somber time for our country. And if what had happened this week hadn't happened, I wouldn't even be mentioning this. On September 17th, a very long time ago, no, I don't mean just this September 17th, in the 18th century, September 17th was the day that our Constitution was adopted. When the session was over and Benjamin Franklin came outside, people said, Mr. Franklin, do we have a monarchy or do we have a republic? He said, we have a republic if we can keep it. If we can keep it. September 17th of this year, that very day, was the day that this explosion occurred and we found out about the telephone conversation, which is completely in defiance of the Constitution of the United States. That same day. The beauty of our Constitution, the genius of our Constitution is the system of checks and balances. 3 co-equal branches of government as a check and balance on each other. Separation of power. Separation of power. That is a republic. A president who says, the second Article 2 of the Constitution says, I can do whatever I want, that is a monarchy. That's not what the Constitution says. So again, what we're talking about here is not about personality. It's not about policy differences. That's to be taken up in the election, which is 13 months and about 2 weeks from now. That's for then. If you don't like the policies, if the president is too cowardly to protect children with gun violence prevention, or too in denial about climate change, or too cruel to help dream, take that up in the campaign. This is only about the facts. Anybody in here in my generation will know just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts. Just the facts. Just the facts and the Constitution of the United States. That is so very important for all of us to be prayerful, to be solemn, to conduct all of this in a way that is worthy of the Constitution. And so, you talked earlier about when this and that occurred and comparing, and we talked about time, and I talked about how long I've known Governor Riley. Our founders, they had temporal markers. Even Lincoln, he said, 77 years ago. Thomas Paine, when in the course of human events, our Declaration of Independence, and that is when in the course of human events, the Declaration, Thomas Paine, these are the times that try men's souls. Oh, they kept talking about time. Thomas Paine also said this in the dark days of the Revolution. The times have found us. Times have found us. Well, we believe that the times have found us. Each and every one of you in this room have given up time on a weekend to come together to make the future better for the American people, and the time you volunteer or encourage others to do so, or promote candidates or causes for our country. Times have found you too. But right now, the times have found us for the Republic, if we can keep it, because that is what is at stake. We don't place ourselves in a category of greatness of our founders, but we do understand the urgency of the time that we are in. So this is about the Constitution of the United States, a system of checks and balances. That is what our democracy is about. And let me just quote you someone from Greenville. This is just, I didn't know, I thought he was just from, not just from, I thought he was from South Carolina. So I thought, this is perfect, it's from South Carolina. But the governor told me, no, it's from Greenville, South Carolina. Congressman James Mann. Congressman James Mann. During the Watergate hearings, South Carolina Congressman from Greenville, James Mann, said these words that ring through the ages. We have built our country on the Constitution. That system has been defended on the battlefields, and statesmen have ended their careers on behalf of the system and either passed into oblivion or immortality. He then went on to say, now too we must defend our Constitution and our democracy. And our democracy. And that is the challenge that we have. So this is something that we treat it with great care. There may be some in this room who thought we should have been sooner. I just said when we have more facts, we will be ready. And we were ready. And we were ready. And we're ready. So just to say this, our founders, I've quoted them a number of times, but they gave us guidance on how we should engage in our democratic debate. They had their differences. We know that. They had their differences writing the Constitution. They had their differences in the first years of our country. That's the democratic way, people with different points of view having their debate. But they said at that time, e pluribus unum, from many one. They couldn't imagine how many we would be or how different we would be from each other. But they knew we had to strive to be one, to be one. So as we go forward with all of this, as we try to make the future better for the American people through legislation, seeking common ground, which is our responsibility to do, standing our ground, that would be Thomas Jefferson saying, standing our ground like a rock when we can't. But that's all part of the debate of a democracy. But as we go through this difficult time, we have to handle it in a way that I said earlier, worthy of the Constitution, heeding their guidance of e pluribus unum, that we are one, indivisible, as we pledged earlier, liberty and justice for all. So we're in a difficult time. I'm not even going to go into how difficult. But in any event, everything, in my view, is an opportunity. And this is an opportunity for respectfully having a civics lesson for our country about what our Constitution is about and why it was important, how brilliant they were to put it forth and to make it amendable so we could ever be expanding opportunity and freedom over time. So that's the case we have to make. Some people say, why are you doing this? He's not worth it to divide the country this way. I said, well, he may not be. But our Constitution is worth it. Our democracy is worth it. So, thank you. So as we work and our republic, if we can keep it, is worth it. As we go forward now in the next 13 months, here we are in the Democratic Party. I just was with my party, my county party, San Francisco County Party the other day, and recently with the state party, and I said, this is my political home because it's the grassroots. This is what it's about. It's the strength. You are the strength of the party. Without you, nothing can happen in a very good way. So thank you for that. So now we have that. Putting that where it belongs, just the facts, ma'am, the Constitution. Now we have an election year coming up. How many times have people said to you, this is the most important election of our time? Well, this is. Oh, before I leave the other subject, I just have to tell you this one thing a cartoonist told me today. There's this meme going around of me, and I'm saying, Donald, you used to own a casino. You know the house always wins. But let me go where my dear friend Don Fowler took us at the end of his remarks. We have important work to do. We fully intend to win every one of our new members of Congress, to have them be reelected. Thank you again for adding to our Democratic victory, Joe Cunningham. We want to increase our numbers, but we're ready. I like to be ready a year before the election because that deters any more serious candidates from getting in the race, right? It's like sports. You want the weaker opponent, right? And if you show strength, as you are doing tonight, that is so very important. So I can only speak from the standpoint of the House of Representatives. Mr. Clyburn has been so much a part of our political effort to win the House in a very substantial way so that we can take back the Senate for the American people, a Democratic Senate. And absolutely essential that we elect a Democratic President of the United States. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Madam Speaker, we know how extremely busy your schedule is. And again, we are honored to have you this evening, and we want to provide this publication to you of South Carolina history. But let me just add that your being Speaker not only gives us hope in South Carolina, but the entire nation hope. So we thank you, we thank you, we thank you. Thank you so much.
I will display this publication, this beautiful book, with great pride in the Capitol, in the Speaker's office.